all of you to the Bill Cartwright Show. Today we have a great guest on, somebody that I spent a lot of time with the Bulls. He is a three-time NBA champion, 11 years in the NBA, All-Star, Mr. BJ Armstrong. BJ, I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled to be here with you.
Oh, Bill, it's great. It's great to hear your voice. It's great to hear the introduction. And it's the first time you've ever called me Mr. It's the first time, because when I met you, that's what I call you. That's Mr. Cartwright. That's Mr.
Right.
Cartwright.
Well, I was the old guy then. I think I was like 32 or something.
And now this is great. And man, it's so great to see you. And man, I just, you called and asked, and I said, anytime I could talk to Bill, I just want to hear that voice. I want to hear that voice, and it's great to see you, and I hope you're doing well. You look terrific here on the Zoom. I wish we were together in the room, so thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here, and also my friend Steve Cohen here as well. We'll tune Steve in off and on. But basically what I want to do is I just want to talk about you, talk about your career. And it's interesting, all that time we spent together, I never, it's funny how you know your teammates, but you never really know exactly. Like everybody knows you're from Michigan, played high school basketball there. And Michigan's got some great high school players. But I've just always been curious, how in the world does a guy from Michigan get to Iowa? Now that in itself is really amazing, because certainly you had other opportunities to go other places.
Right.
But how did that happen?
Well, that's I don't know how much time we have, Bill, but I'll try to get to it. I'm gonna try to walk you straight in the barn instead of walking you around it, right? Well, I truthfully, growing up in Detroit, I always wanted to go to Michigan or Michigan State. And that's where I wanted to go to school. You don't grow up in Michigan without, saying, you're going to be a Michigan man or you're going to be a Spartan. And truth be told, at the time when I went to visit Michigan, they were the number one team in the country that year. They had Roy Tarpley. They had Antoine Jobert, Gary Grant. They just had a great team. They really did. And I remember Bill Frieder at the time, who was the coach, and Steve Fisher, who was the assistant coach. They told me that I was going to have to redshirt if I came there. And it was such a blow to my ego. It was such a blow, right? It was such a blow to my ego. And I was like, can I just get a chance? And he was like, nah, you got a redshirt if you're going to come here. And all those guys were like sophomores or juniors. So they were going to literally have to sit, and I was going to have to sit for at least a couple of years there at Michigan, because they were just loaded. And then they ended up in the same recruiting class was Glenn Rice. So there literally was no time for us. Yeah, they were loaded. And then Michigan State, I go visit at the time is Judd Heathcote and Sam Vincent, who you know. I think you might have played with Sam.
Oh yeah, I did.
So man. Sam was my host. He was a senior, and I go up there, and everything is great. And I was ready to go to Michigan State. I was ready to be a Spartan. I was sold. Judd Heathcote was the coach. Tom Izzo was an assistant, and everything was good. And there was this freshman who I remember on the last day, it was Sunday, I was going to drive back home because it was an easy drive or so from Detroit to East Lansing. And there was this young guard on the team at the time. He was a freshman. And I remember as I'm about to leave, I'm saying my goodbyes. Sam Vincent was great. Everybody was terrific. He goes, congratulations. And you just better be prepared to sit on the bench for the next 3 years. This is what he said to me in front of the coaches and everyone. Oh, wow. So I didn't know what to say. And I just kind of like paused for a second. And that guard was Scott Skiles. And him and I, every time we see each other, we always joke about it. I mean, he said it like he was joking, but he really wasn't joking. And from right then and there, I was like, okay, if I come here, everyone's going to say he's got to sit for the next 3 years, or I got to like stand up. So I decided to stand up for myself and to say, you know what, screw that. I'm not going to Michigan State, and I'm going to Iowa. And that's how I got to Iowa. And but those were great programs. You know, Scott Skiles was a terrific player, played in the NBA, and we always laugh about it when we see each other still to this day. And so that's how I ended up at Iowa. I was recruited by George Raveling at the time before he went to USC, and it was great. I loved it. It was an opportunity to stay in the Big Ten, and it was good school, great school, and I had an opportunity to play there. So it all worked out in the end. But truthfully, Michigan State were my first options just because of really the location. But once I stepped on the campus of Iowa, I just felt at home. Something felt right for me, and it was a great fit for me. And I just loved and adore the university, and they always take great care of me up there.
Yeah, well, you had a great career there. Your numbers retired up there, right?
Yeah, a little something like that. Not like yours, not like yours.
No,
but,
just like mine. That's awesome. Awesome. So now you leave Iowa, and now you're getting ready for the draft.
Oh,
so now that's that's big. So what were you thinking at the draft? What teams did you think there was a possibility of you going to?
Well, God, it's another interesting story. I'm recounting these stories now, 30-something years later. And so when I came out in 1989, 1989, when I came out, you used to play in the senior games or what have you. And the game at that time was in, I want to say it was in either Arizona. No, it was in Florida. I think it was in Florida. It was in Florida, and They would bring the top seniors there, and you would play kind of over a week, 4 or 5 games, and all of the teams would come there to watch. And Bill, I was very fortunate. I never had any significant injuries that kept me out from playing in the NBA for an extended amount of time. But Bill, it was one of the weirdest things. So it was literally a jump ball. And Bill, I go to grab the ball, like I was, being a guard, I was standing in the backcourt at the time, and guy tips the ball to me, Bill, and I grabbed the ball with my left hand, and my hand broke, and no one was around me. Bill, it was like one of the weirdest things. So Bill, like the very first, like tip ball, I grab the ball, and my hand just breaks. No, Bill, no one's around me. So I remember I felt something, but I was like, whatever. And I dribbled the ball, and the ball didn't come back up. So I'm kind of like looking around, like, where's the ball? And Bill, my hand's like, it just like broke. So I missed the entire thing for the pre-draft. And there was a guard who replaced me. His name was Tim Hardaway. Tim Hardaway replaces me. He goes on to win MVP at the tournament. They win the tournament. And I think he ends up going in the lottery, and I end up going 18th to the Bulls. I really thought I had a good chance to go to Philadelphia. If you remember, Big Daddy Caps was the owner there, and and Philly. And I remember I thought that was going to be a good fit for me. And somehow, some way, I got to Detroit. I think Philadelphia ended up drafting Dana Barros during that time. And so it all worked out, and I worked out for the Bulls, and I thought there was a chance I would go there as well. But, I thought maybe Philadelphia, Detroit, Seattle, there was a few other teams, and but it all worked out. And then I walk into the locker room, and I'm your rookie, and I can't ever say no to Bill. So you call me, and I'm still saying yes to you. I'm still saying yes, whatever you need.
So you're drafted by the Bulls. Obviously, you have watched this. You came there at an incredible time, because actually I got there in '88, and 89, Phil was there. So what were you thinking about the Bulls? Because we were on the cusp of probably able to battle against a team that you were probably a fan of, the Detroit Pistons. So what were you thinking?
Well, Bill, all right. So, here we can share everything. I was a Piston fan. Okay. I grew up a Piston fan, and I grew up playing with and against Isaiah and all those guys in the summer. they were kind enough to let a young guy like me tag along and play and do things. And Bill, if there was ever a team that embodied the personality of a city, it was the Detroit Pistons and the bad boy image. You know, we were bad boys, and that's what we did. And I love the team. And I never shared this with anyone on our team, but all those times we would play the Pistons in the playoffs, my family would say, you know, we're rooting for you to do well, but we're rooting for the Pistons. My entire family. I mean, that's what we do. Like I look in the stands and my parents were like booing, boo. I was like, Mom, Dad, you can't do that, right? And so, you know, it was great when I came to Chicago. And it was great for a number of reasons. Actually, my mom is from Chicago, and my mom is from the west side of Chicago. And so I had a lot of, you know, second cousins and family members there in Chicago. And it was great. I remember the first thing was because when I was drafted there, Doug Collins at that time was the coach. And that was kind of my introduction to the NBA because Doug Collins was the coach. I get drafted, and all of a sudden, he's fired. Yeah. And Phil Jackson. And so I didn't know what to expect. That was kind of my introduction to the business. And I show up there in the first day and I do everything that, you know, at the time, the late Jerry Krause said to show up at the multiplex, as you recall. And they wouldn't let me in practice the first day. They said, hey, they were like,
too young.
Yeah, they were like, hey kid, you can't show up. I was like, I promise you I'm on the team. And they literally, they held me at the front door, Bill. I was sitting there like, you know, I was like so embarrassed. They wouldn't let me in. And they go back and they go, oh yeah, you are a player. So that was my introduction to the NBA. They wouldn't let me on the job. I was almost late. I almost got my first fine. But overall, it was terrific. I had great veterans with yourself who showed me the ropes, and, you know, you were patient with me to, you know, give me the opportunity to kind of grow at my own pace and my own speed. And I'm forever grateful. And I always tell anyone what, you know, about my career. I said, I'm forever grateful to have Bill Cartwright as a veteran because he showed me how to be a pro. You showed me how to take care of myself. And you always had you were always funny. You had a sense of humor, you know, you never got too high, you never got too low, but it's the veterans in this league that really are the backbone of helping young players transition to becoming pros themselves. So I'm forever grateful for you taking the time and a young kid from Detroit who didn't know anything about the NBA.
Thank you. And you know what's great is that you got better. You got so much better every single year. And it was interesting because as you got better, you played more and more minutes, and I mean more significant minutes to where you were on the floor at crunch time at a lot of times. Did you feel like, especially coming off the bench, that you were ready to assume that kind of a role?
Well, Bill, I really didn't know. And to be truthful, you know, I didn't know what to expect because I was used to playing a certain style of basketball where being a point guard at the time, you know, I had the ball predominantly for the most of the time, initiating the offense and doing what a point guard would do. And suddenly now I'm playing in a system. And Bill, when I came there, the triangle, like many young players, I struggled with playing in that system, you know, ball movement, you know, player movement, you know, Tex was always on me, you know, two pass, ping, you know, get the ball moving, swing the ball. You got to, you know, automatic. I was like, what's an automatic? You know, reverse action off the blind pig. And, you know, by the way, you know, I learned very quickly, you know, as a guard in college, I could drive and give a bounce pass. Well, you know, the big guys don't like catching bounce passes in the NBA in traffic. You know, that's so there were so many things to learn. And I was playing a lead guard, and I had another guard on the team who was this superstar who demanded the ball, Jordan. So how to manage all this? You had an evolving player, Scottie Pippen. And so it was a lot on my plate. But like, again, I was very fortunate that I was, you know, I had great people around me. And, you know, yourself and John Paxson and Craig Hodges. And so it just kind of worked out. You know, I wanted to work. The work never bothered me. I just needed time to kind of figure out how to play the NBA style and the kind of style that we played, which is a system which predicated on ball movement, player movement. We had great players like yourself who could score in the post if need be. You could play screen roll. I love playing screen roll with you on the weak side because we knew the ball would never reverse back to the other side.
It's not going back. One of us
no one knows that. So Phil, that's why the ball never was swung to the other side. Bill and I had a deal. And so it was fun. And of course, when you're winning, it was great. And, the seasons are so long, as you know, and playing for so long as you did. But it was a lot of fun, and those were great times.
We're going to go back to the Bulls in a minute, but tell me, what were you thinking after that time was over? You guys you just come off of winning 3 championships, and then now you're headed to Golden State. So what were you thinking at that time?
When I got traded, I'd only known the Bulls, so I didn't know, any, other system of play. Other than what I learned there in Chicago. And I learned very quickly that the NBA is much different when I left Chicago.
Okay, so who was coaching there when you went there?
Rick Adelman.
Yeah.
Rick Adelman, he was great. He was, one of the nicest people I've ever met. And he was terrific. Played with Chris Mullin. Actually, I played with Tim Hardaway, was on that team, Latrell Sprewell. And it was really fun. And the best part was I was living in San Francisco and living in the Bay Area. And I always said when I played there, if you would win here, life would be unfair, because I would cross the bridge every day to go to practice in Oakland. At the time, the team was in Oakland. And it was great. It was Bill. I loved my life when I played in San Francisco. I really fell in love with the city. I fell in love with the fans, great fan base. But I really didn't know what to expect. But I knew the game was a lot different. And, we had some good players, but we had some injuries. And the one thing is that, winning, I remember Tex would always say this: winning covers a multitude of sins. Yes. And that's when I really learned how special those moments were in Chicago, because in Chicago, that's all I knew was I was preparing to win games, but it's really hard to win in this league. So it wasn't eye-opening, but I just had a deeper appreciation when I played and went to other places to play, because you know how hard it is, especially when you're building a team and you're having young players and everyone's trying to figure it out. But overall, I can't complain about the city. The fan base was terrific. The food was fabulous. And to this day, I still love the Bay Area. It's one of my favorite places in the world.
As you should. Yeah. So let me ask you, who was kind of the guy you were spent a lot of time with in Golden State?
Chris Mullin.
Okay. Chris.
Yeah, Chris and I became really good friends. He loves to work out, and I never seen a person who, I love to work out, but he would work out more than anyone I've ever seen. And I just wanted to see if I could keep up with his conditioning. And he would work out literally before practice for like an hour and a half on the bike, practice. Then he'd do his shooting things after practice. And then he'd do another literally 45 minutes, an hour on the bike every single day. His conditioning was phenomenal. And by the way, he could shoot a little bit. So I love playing shooting games with him. And he was, when I say a pro's pro, he was a pro's pro. He wasn't the fastest. He wasn't the strongest, but his conditioning and preparation is like nothing I've ever seen. Literally, he would start getting ready for a 7:30 game at like 2 p.m. He had a whole routine that he would do before. And he was a great friend. We're still friends to this day. So he was probably my closest teammate on that team. And he was great to play with.
So as you left there, you went to Charlotte.
I went to Charlotte and played in Charlotte. I had never played in the South, so that was interesting. I remember when I get off the plane, they were like, "Hi, darling." I was like, "Oh, who are they talking to?" Kid from Detroit. And but no, it was another experience. And I go down there, and it was really interesting because I played with what really was a very interesting player, Vlade Divac. And I knew Vlade from high school.
Who was coaching down there?
Dave Cowens.
Dave Cowens, wow.
Dave Cowens was coaching. And it was great to play with Vladdy because Vladdy was like, he was like this passing big, like he would just make all types of passes. Like it was like they weren't irresponsible, but he would have 5 turnovers just trying to make the craziest passes. And we would give, and we had great shooters. And it was really interesting because we had Dale Curry, who was phenomenal,
Great
Glenn
shooter.
Rice,
Great.
myself, and then we had like Vladdy, and Vladdy would just be whipping the ball around. And we had a really good team. We had the late Anthony Mason, who was a low post player, really good passer, and we just had a really good team. And but Vladdy was like one of those guys that I played with for really as a big. He's perhaps, I mean, Bill, you were the best big I've ever played with, but Vladdy was really interesting because he could pass like I've never seen. I mean, he would just be throwing things all around. So, it was a good team. I had a good time down there in Charlotte. And, I think you were coaching at that time for the Bulls when we played you guys in the playoffs.
Then you ended up in Orlando.
I end up in Orlando, and I get to Orlando via a trade with the Lakers. And I remember talking to Jerry West at the time. He was like, yeah, you're not going to be a part of this trade. So feel free to, if you want to go someplace else and play. He's like, we have this young guard, kind of reminds me of you a little bit. And I'm afraid that our coaches may want to go with some veterans. So I'm just not going to even bring you. And that player ended up being Derek Fisher, who he was talking about. So I didn't go. I was released by the Lakers, and Chuck Daly, who I grew up in Detroit, my bad boy, that was my guy, picks me up, and I go down there to Orlando. And that was during the 50-game season, if you remember. And so Penny Hardaway, and I go down there and I play, and it was good. It was warm weather. I was beginning to get into this warm weather thing, Bill. That warm weather thing was essential at that stage of my career. So I really liked it down there in Orlando because, I get a great lather. I warm up nice, and it was good. It was good down there.
After that, you ended up back in Chicago.
Yes, I did. And, Jerry Krause and the team, they were kind of, as we would say, retooling at the time. They were retooling. And it was nice to come back. It was nice to kind of put a bow on my career, where it all began. And I was able to end my career there in Chicago. And, just by chance, my last game of the season was in Detroit that year. So for me, it had come full circle. I ended my last game in the NBA was in the city of Detroit with the Chicago Bulls, how it all started for me. So it was a great run, a great ride. I made some great friends along the way. And it was, I can't believe you seemed like I just got in the league. And before I knew it, I was the oldest guy on the team. All of a sudden, I would always make fun of you.
Right, you were just like me.
Yeah. I make fun of you drinking your coffee, getting your ice bags. And I remember you would always say, "You just wait." You would always say that. I'd be like, that'll never be me. You just wait. And lo and behold, I was a guy drinking coffee. I was a guy with ice bags before the game. And I was like, Bill told me, but I didn't listen.
So after that, because I was really curious, because you ended up actually in the Bulls front office. So how did that happen?
Well, I've always had interest in the business and the business of sports. And so once my career ended, I was just having a conversation with Jerry and Krause and Jerry Reinsdorf, and it was like, hey, why don't you give it a try, And I thought, yeah, it'd be an opportunity to learn how this business, like, how did I really get drafted? How do you make a trade? How does this salary cap work? Why is this Gatorade sign on the side of the, So for me, it was just an opportunity for me to really learn about how I got in this place, like how do you actually evaluate or scout a player? So I'm forever thankful to Jerry Krause for allowing me that opportunity, and for Jerry Reinsdorf for allowing me to just work in the front office. And it really gave me an idea of what this business was all about. And I've taken those lessons, and Jerry Reinsdorf, he gave me some of the best advice I've ever received, which I remember he specifically told me, he said, the one thing that you can learn here that you should always remember is that knowing what not to do is more important than knowing what to do. And at the time, I didn't really understand that. But over the years, working in the front office, there's so many things that you have to understand about that business before you make a draft pick or before you make a trade or before you sign a player in free agency. And they gave me an example of learning what not to do in the business. And the rules have changed, the salary cap changes, but the principles of scouting and evaluating and making trade never really changes. And that all starts with your ability to work and continue working. So, but it was a great opportunity, and I forever ever cherish the opportunity to continue to work. And when I did work in the front office for the Bulls.
What did you learn from our super scout, Jerry Krause?
Without question, the one thing that I learned is the passion for the game. Jerry, for better or for worse, he had a different personality.
Yes,
but once you got to know him, you understood. But make no doubt about it, Bill, the one thing I learned from Jerry is Jerry had an incredible work ethic. He had a passion for scouting. I mean, when I tell you, Bill, he loved to scout. He loved it. He loved to go out and just watch players. And he loved to go out and the idea of building things or building a team in this instance. And he really had a passion for it. And when you really, you're working in front office and there's a lot of things, you talk about salary cap, now we have, cap people who just do the cap, and we have other people who just do trades or advanced scouting. But when you really boil it down to what you do in the front office is you have to be able to evaluate not only the other team's players, but you have to evaluate your own team's players. So scouting is what I learned is scouting is basically the core or the foundation of what this business is really all about. You have to properly identify talent. And you don't know where that talent is going to come from, right? You don't know if you're going to draft that talent, you're going to trade for that talent. You don't know if you're going to get that talent in free agency, or better yet, you don't know if you draft a young player like a Scottie Pippen and he evolves to be one of the top 50 greatest players. So those are the 4 ways that you have to identify talent, and it all comes from scouting. So that lesson of understanding players and not missing a superstar player, I learned that from Chicago. And scouting is, even in what I do today as an agent, I'm always evaluating players because the game continues to evolve. The game continues to change. And the one thing that I don't want to miss is always a superstar player. I'm looking for the next Bill Cartwright. I need a big who can score, who can rebound, and can control the lane. And if I find that player is worth a substantial amount of money, Bill. If you were playing today, Bill, I know they say it's small ball, but they miss players like you, because now all those guys going down the lane for dunks like you're seeing now, well, I wouldn't worry about that if I was playing with Bill Cartwright. That wouldn't happen.
Well, just make sure if you do find somebody like that, before you allow them to get on a team, make sure they're throwing it to the post.
Oh, well, I'm going to tell you something. Bill, there was this big guy I used to play with early in my career. And if we didn't throw that guy the ball, that guy wouldn't set screens. Or better yet, the guy wouldn't leave the post, so us little guards couldn't drive to the basket. So somehow the bigs today don't know all the tricks that you guys did. And
no, they don't.
They don't know those tricks. So we got to get more of you guys back in there to coach and teach these guys how to work with these guards and how to play the game today.
Let me ask you real quick, because he did entertain me for about a month. Last Dance. You've got to give me an idea of what you thought about that month of Last Dance.
Well, first of all, Bill, it was very entertaining, and yes. I've never laughed so much.
Same boat.
It was just, like everyone else's life was always exciting, but I never thought my life was exciting. I never knew that
all that turmoil.
I didn't know all of this was going on around me. I was like, Bill, I was just trying to get to the game on time. I was just trying to get I was just happy when Nike sent me some shoes. I was just happy to play. I got a uniform, And I didn't know all of this was going on around me. I didn't know that, there was all this drama in our locker room. I like Bill. As far as I knew, Bill liked me.
Yes.
I didn't know all these things. And the funny part about all of it was after one of the episodes, and I get a text from Michael. He just said, "You're a really funny kid." That's all he put. And he just put laugh. And so, it was good. And I think everyone, when I spoke with Scotty and now I was talking to you about it, we just laughed. Like, it was really funny. It was great to see. Now my kids really believe that I played in the NBA because they don't think that I played because they didn't see me. They weren't born at the time that I played. But overall, it was funny. I thought it was very well done, and great storylines. I wish we could do some side shows, like what really happened, and
Right.
from Bill Cartwright's perspective. So, but it was fun. I thought it was well done. It was very entertaining. I can't recall where I actually sat down and kind of watched something on television like without interruptions. And it was like 10 weeks or something, or 5 weeks or something. But
Yeah.
it was great, very well done. So I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was. I'll say it was very entertaining. It did give me something to do.
Yeah, I just wish I would have known that my life was exciting.
Was that crazy? I didn't know. I didn't know all this was going on. But the last thing I want to talk to you about is what are you doing now?
Yeah. So once I got done playing, I worked in the front office, and I went from the front office, and now, and somehow, some way, I started working with players in the representation space. So for the last 15 years or so, Bill, I've been just working with players as an agent, and it's been fun. It's been fun working with young players. Kind of keeps me around the game, and the players being so young is helping these young people to transition. So, Bill, when I first came in the league, I was a senior. I graduated, and I felt I was fairly mature at the time, but I quickly realized how much I didn't know. And it's just invaluable when you have older players and players, like yourself. And as I said earlier in the show, it was very important. And it meant so much to me in my career because there's certain things that it's important that you hear it from another player. Somebody can tell you about the NBA, somebody can tell you about something, but experience, there's no replacement for it. And I never envisioned that I would become an agent, but I saw an opportunity for these young players as they were getting younger and younger in the NBA.
Right.
I can't imagine what it would have been like for me being 18 or 19 years of age coming into this league.
Yeah.
Right. Let alone I was 22 and I felt mature and I struggle. I can't imagine what they're going through, especially in today. And I think that's what kind of drew me to the game, is because I know how important that was for me in my career, because your career could go in a lot of different ways. And, and when you guys would grab me and you guys would tell me and show me the ropes and show me things that, wasn't in the manual, right? No one gives you a manual and says, this is how you play in the NBA. But when you guys would do that for me, it was like those moments in life that you're forever grateful. So I've been very fortunate to work with a lot of young players and a lot of young people. And it gives me the greatest thrill to see these young people transition to rookies and go on to have families themselves. And then they retire and transition and move on. So it's been a great thrill for me because the air comes out of the ball for all of us at some point. And, it's great to play in the NBA. Is terrific. Don't get me wrong. It's a lot of, beautiful things that come with it. But the greatest thing is to watch these young people once they retire and watch these people move on with their life. So it's been very rewarding in that regard, because my work as an agent really begins once these, kids, here I am calling them kids, they're like 35, 36, right? Calling them kids. I guess what happens when you get over 50 is once these kids retire and then they go on to their second phase or their next phase of their life. So it's been very rewarding, and I'm very happy somehow I got here, but it's been one of those things that, it's been terrific, and very fortunate to work with so many wonderful people over the years.
Tell me really quick about because you work with some high profile guys, you can mention them or not, and some guys who maybe went overseas.
Right.
What's the difference in that? Because some guys have got to require maybe more time. I know everybody requires a certain amount of attention, but how hard is that? Because you have worked with some
Yeah.
guys that probably require a lot of time and effort.
Yeah. And, Bill, as much as we talk about how the game has changed now, I always say, oh man, pace and space and team, and people always ask me, what do you think the teams of yesteryear would do against these teams? And I always chuckle because I was like, it was eras, there's different rules and different time and different place. But the one thing, Bill, that hasn't changed is when you come into this league, everyone has to answer the same question. How quickly are you going to become a pro? Everyone in this league has talent. But if you don't transition to become a pro, one or two things are going to be happening. Either you're going to be out of the league or you're going to have to go to Europe and play. And then when you go to Europe, if you don't get it, then you're done. So becoming a professional, to me, is the key to either having a career or just getting a cup of coffee in this league. And so I try to help these young people become a pro as quickly as you can. Some players walk into the league and they are pros from day one. Some, they need a year or two. Some need 4 or 5. Some never get it. But we all have to answer that question no matter how much talent you have, because, your talent may get you in the league, but your talent is not going to keep you in this league. You have to, at some point, become a professional if you're going to have a career in the NBA. And that, to me, is the trick. That's the trick that everyone is working towards, and trying to help these young people to understand that. No one tells you that when you're 17 or 18, when your talent is just that much greater than all the other players you're playing against. But when you come up here, everyone's talent is basically the same. And with a few exceptions of exceptional athletes or, people that are just, having incredible amounts of like physical gifts. Overall, you got to be a pro if you're going to have a career up here.
How's your family?
Everyone's well, Bill. Everyone's good. Family is good. No news is always good news. And how's your family? How's your family? You got grandkids now?
Well, I've got 7 grandkids.
You got 7 grandkids, and that's great. And I always remember your kids and family coming to the games, and they were always there. And that's the one thing, I so many things I always admired about you, but you always had your kids around. You always had your kids with you. And now having kids, I was like, God, that took a lot of energy. that took a lot of energy, So, yeah, you always had your kids around, and they were always there. You always had your family. And I don't know if a lot of people know this, but you were our true car guy. You were a car guy. So I got to ask, what are you driving right now? Because once you're a car guy, you're always a car guy.
Well, believe it or not, I'm only down to, really, I just have my 57 Bel Air. It's black. Of course, I'll have that forever. And
Right.
You'll like this. You'll appreciate it, because I still have the car that I drove in college.
Really?
Yeah, that's right. It's a 76 Grand Prix. I still have it. I can't get rid of it. It's at my dad's
How many
house.
miles on this? How many miles on this car?
We just turned that off. Hell no. But I still got it. I love it. I still have the same Jeep that I had. So it's really down to 3. But you and I understand.
It's all about the cars.
Cars. Yes,
And we would. I always remember getting on the plane, and everyone else would be sleeping. And I would look over there, and Bill would have the light on. He's looking at a car magazine. I was like, that's my guy. He's always looking at car magazines. So that's great. And no, this is excellent.
Awesome. BJ Armstrong, thank you so much for being on.
Bill,
Mr. BJ Armstrong.
Oh, man. You know what?
So much.
It's taken me 53 years to get a Mr. from Mr. Cartwright. It's great to see you, Bill, man. Thank you so much. And man, it's been too long, and hopefully we can get together soon and catch up.
Yes. Drive some cars. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.